But the point remains, and here's Mehdi Hasan talking about this. The point remains, everything that Donald Trump is doing, it goes from being on Donald Trump, and I've said this for a week. I finally tweeted it out. Somebody was like, well, it's about time you tweeted it because you said it a day and after. I'm going to say it every day now. The founders contemplated someone like Donald Trump, which is why they put impeachment in there. But they also assumed that there'd be someone different from Nancy Pelosi who would actually attempt to hold the president to account with the tools that they have provided. And when you do not do that, you own it. And until Nancy Pelosi gets her caucus to vote for impeachment, until that time, Mitch McConnell and the Republicans will not own it. When she does, they will then own it. And they may say, we don't care. It's BS. But at least then it's on them. And that's what you start to run against them. Donald Trump, there was a poll out today, NBC poll. See if we can pull this here. I'll send you it's an NBC News poll. And it basically shows how much, what policies Democratic voters want and what policies, here it is. It's an NBC News poll. And Wall Street Journal. A record share of voters dislike Trump personally. They also sort of don't like his policies. Gives a breakdown of what policies people like. We'll put this up. There's a nice graph that shows you the difference between Democratic primary voters and all registered voters. Dreamers staying in the United States, 89% versus 67% across the board. Medicare buy-in, 78% for those under 65. Again, 67%. There's a lot of, keep going down a little more. You'll see it right here. There's a lot of there's a lot of very progressive policies. You get down to Medicare for all. 63% of Democrats like it, 41% of American public, but it says eliminating all private insurance. I think if you were to put making private insurance obsolete there, it might change those numbers. But I would also add that building a wall gets around 43%, and Donald Trump seemed to do pretty well running on that. So, but the other thing that came out of this is essentially the Democrats want to make this a referendum on Trump, and Trump wants to make it a choice between two bad options, which is basically what we've been saying here for a long time. Trump is going to try and depress the vote by making the alternative seem tainted as well. And so the people go, screw it. The Democrats have one perfect way to nationalize every single House election, every single Senate election in the country. And they can do it and nationalize it by making it about Donald Trump. They can make every single election about Donald Trump, whether you're running for Congress in East Bum Place in Montana or in, downtown Houston or upstate New York. It doesn't matter. And that is to push impeachment and make every single one of them either vote on it or make a statement about it. And then it all becomes about Trump. And Trump is the most disliked president that we have had in decades and decades and decades. And the presidential elections will run that's a different calculus. Can't just run against Trump because you have to make sure that you are building a force field around yourself, essentially, as the presidential candidate. But if you're in Congress and you're in Senate, you can run against Trump. And you can make the Republicans own it if if you vote to impeach in the House. Here's Mehdi Hasan making a point about the Democrats just simply not doing their job.
I mean, you have to admire the brazenness of the hypocrisy when it comes to Donald Trump's attacks on his opponents. For this president of all presidents to attack the child of a rival? I mean, should we talk about Ivanka Trump and her Chinese trademarks? And should we talk about Don Jr. and Eric and the Trump organization and the non-existent Chinese wall between them and the guy in the Oval Office? I mean, it's the irony beyond irony. But the Republicans are good at this stuff. They're shameless. They're brazen. They take advantage of the whole media both sidesism, and therefore they're going to continue doing this. And I think Trump's going to carry on doing this stuff because, Joy, one thing that's missing from your timeline that you showed at the start, for me, a very crucial date, July 25th is the day he made the call to the Ukrainian president, allegedly 8 times pressured him to investigate Biden's son. What happened on July 24th? The day before, Robert Mueller testifies in Congress saying this president has not been exonerated. This president could still be indicted after he leaves office. And what happens? Nothing. No change in the Democratic leadership's position on impeachment. So if you're Donald Trump and you see, wait a minute, I can get away with 2016, why wouldn't you do it again in 2020?
Yeah, there it is. He basically said, like, I guess what I did was legal. I might as well do it again. It worked so well the first time.
I'll have seconds.
There are implications. I mean, aside from what you leave on the table in terms of the politics, if you do not pursue impeachment, there's also implications that you're basically saying to the guy, there's nothing you can do that will get you impeached. Nothing. Nothing.
I know what to do with that information.
Holy cow. This is a total open door policy. They sent out Steve Mnuchin. This guy should be in prison. This guy should be just getting out of prison, it seems to me, for what he did in the foreclosure crisis. He's not, largely because Kamala Harris ignored recommendations from people in her office. Maybe there was nothing there. This whole thing is like, this whole administration in many respects is like that part with Saving Private Ryan, which I did not like, frankly. But the idea that like they should have killed that German soldier because he came back and shot one of the, I can't remember who it was. That was not, I didn't particularly like that movie. I thought the Thin Red Line was a lot better. Is that what it was? Malick had a movie out at the same time as Saving Private Ryan. Doesn't matter. But the point is that Steve Mnuchin, when you do not hold these people to account at the time that they commit a crime or a civil violation, a lot of times these guys come back. They don't just go like, oh, I got away with one. I'm going to go home and count my money. It's, I am completely untouchable. That means I can go forward and take more. I can steal more. And that's why we have Steve Mnuchin as the Treasury Secretary out there trying to argue that, it's not a lot of money to us. Why would it make a difference to Ukraine?
Do you know why the aid was delayed, and did it have a connection to the Ukrainian president's decision not to work with Rudy Giuliani?
Well, that I can tell you, that there was no connection. I have been involved with Secretary Pompeo and others on the national security team on the issue of the aid.
How do you know? How do you know for sure? I know you can. Do you know 100%?
Well, what I know is I've been in discussions when we discussed that, and that issue never came up.
During your meetings?
Absolutely.
With the president. And can you explain how all of a sudden when the aid got released, more money showed up? Where did that money come from? There was $250 million, and they got an additional, I think, $140 million that they didn't expect. Where did that, do you have any idea where that
Surprise!
Well, it was appropriated money that came through the State Department.
So they didn't know they were getting this money. Is there any indication why they got the money when they did?
I'm not sure it's correct for you to say they didn't know they got the money.
The president said he was surprised to get it. The president of Ukraine said he was surprised to get an additional $140 million. He said it was a pleasant surprise, but that he was surprised.
I think he was referring to his expectations as opposed to necessarily a surprise. But you're getting into details. Again, these are foreign policy issues. They've been discussed at the National Security Council at the principals level. These were not connected issues.
But do you have any problem with Congress looking into any of this?
What I have a problem with is Congress asking for a transcript between world leaders. I think that those are confidential discussions, and that's a difficult precedent.
Okay, but does the president have any? He says he said nothing inappropriate, so why not release a transcript?
Because, again, I think that these are confidential discussions between world leaders, and world leaders expect that they're going to be kept confidential. It has nothing to do with this call per se.
Okay.
It's just the precedent that they're concerned about.
I love precedents. I'm concerned about the precedents, folks.
So Steve Mnuchin saying with 100% assuredness that when Donald Trump came in and said they told me to delay the money, he didn't say it's because they won't give me dirt on Biden.
See, no collusion. Even
No
Sam
collusion.
says so.
Never said it.
Even
Never
Sam
said
says.
it. Never said it. Never said it's because of what they're doing with Biden. Never said it. I never said it.
Which, I mean, there's a chance he even was that explicit about it.
There is a slight chance, but it's probably more like we're not giving money to.
They're not playing ball.
They're not playing ball. They're not on our team. They're not good people. They're bad people.
They're not nice.
I mean, that would have been the question for Chuck Todd to ask, right? Steve Mnuchin, like, okay, that never came up, the Biden thing. Why did you delay it? Like, what were the reasons? What were the geopolitical reasons that you delayed it and then ended up coming back with 50% more money than they had anticipated?
I think he answered that when he said it came through the State Department.
Well, it came through the State Department. Yeah, indeed. But what was the reasoning? That would be the question that I would ask. Like, what's the reasoning? You say it's not because of Joe Biden. Okay. So when he came in there, what reason did he give you? I don't like their flag. I don't like the colors in the flag. We need a better press and opposition party.
Well, wasn't he saying they weren't going to give it to him because of their history of corruption? And they just weren't sure that he was corrupt, or if he wouldn't be corrupt until he had the conversation?
I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's what it was. In fact, he was so convincing that he was not corrupt. We gave him a 50% tip. He wanted $240 million. We gave him like $380. He just came off as like a really not corrupt guy.
If I got an extra like $140 million, I would be gushing about that phone call too. It was a nice phone call.
Yeah, nice. I wonder what that money was for.
That is a very Trump way of doing diplomatic endeavors, where you're like, man, this guy was such a great server at the restaurant at Cipriani's. I just gave him a 50% tip.
There you go.
He's a good guy.
Loose lips, right? Sometimes you have so much extra money, you can't talk.